Hola community, how are ya? How's it going? Welcome to another episode of Blender Today, live streaming from the Blender Institute HQ. We have changed the curtains, yay! And only missing the fairy lights here and there because holidays are coming. This is the second to last episode of Blender Today this year. Next week is gonna be the last episode. We have plenty of news in Blender actually to cover still until the 3.5 release, which is coming in less than a month. So lots of activity going on. I'm not gonna be doing the live stream, but I'm gonna be hanging out on social media and also helping out with the actual release, with the 3.4 release. I said 3.5. 3.5 is alpha. 3.4 is the coming release. I'm already going a bit too fast here, but stay tuned because today we have news regarding the future of assets, texture paint, cycles, animation, user interface, a bunch of user interface stuff. I'm happy to see that. Grease, pencil, sculpt, performance, UV, rigging, and the potpourri section with a bit of everything. So let's see what is new in first the code blog, because one of the announcements last week, well, first of all, what the heck am I doing talking about Blender? We are on YouTube and this channel is celebrating 1 million of you that have subscribed, and thank you for that. It's really crazy. Let's celebrate it because it really is a big milestone. I think okay, enough. I think the people subscribed to this channel must be the 1 million most confused people everywhere, because this channel is 1 million, but it has things from like Blender Conference talks to all the open movie projects to even films by other people that when we used to upload them for the Blender Conference to Sun Awards Festival, we used to upload the videos to this channel. So who knows why are you subscribed to the channel, but I really appreciate that you are. And if we ever get the thing designed, we're gonna share it with a picture with Ton or with the team, because it's a nice milestone. Time to move into actually what is new in Blender. Before, there is a blog post in the blog, in the code blog, because it's a post about code that is not written yet, but it's code design. So in order to get to even start the project, instead of just starting to code immediately, the team for a while now it's going through the design of a project, what is the different solutions, what is the problem, what is the different solutions that could be tackled as a team, as an actual project, before even writing a line of code. There is a lot of going on already in the textures department, but you can't have a actual like new texture system without the most basic thing, which is brushes, right? Like your brush, your tool, what you use to paint those textures or to make those textures. So this is a foundational project for that big texture project, which can happen, and it's already on its way on the side. However, brush and assets were always there was always something wrong with them. In 2.7, but it hasn't much changed that much in 2.8, but in 2.7 I remember the SCULPT had a bunch of brushes that were made into tools in 2.8, but now each tool has like only one brush, and there's this whole discussion about when you actually save your blend file, you're actually saving all your brushes inside it, and maybe you don't wanna share all that, right? You like specifically share it. Also, every file you ever saved has brushes that you probably never used, right? They like if you're doing sculpting, they have a bunch of grease pencil brushes that you never used, and you probably notice in the outliner there is this this orphan data section with a whole bunch of orphans in here that you probably never use unless you go into this specific area. But anyway, check on the blog post. It introduces a new concept for asset drafts. So brushes are gonna be assets, just like any other asset, and it's gonna be managed by the asset browser. Even a small asset browser or a big one, that's to be defined. But the same concept that you do for, it will be applied for matcaps, for HDRIs, and so on. And it's pretty cool. I like it. This was posted by Dalai, and it was actually designed by the team with Julian and with the Julians, I think. There's no credit section in here. I'm gonna ask Dalai to add one, but you should check it out. It's the future of what brushes could be. Maybe we could make a video about it, because although there is not much to show, and this storyboarding way of explaining it, I think it makes it clear. So the difference right now is that everything that you save in your brushes stays in your blend file. You can't share it with anyone. You can't share a brush. You have to send the blend file to someone. They have to append the brush from the blend file. It's not really great. So this way you could, the way you would work is you have your default brushes, the one that come with Blender, and then you make tweaks to it, and then you save those changes, and they're loaded automatically the next time. And by magic, you don't know exactly what's going on under the hood. That's great. You can also open the asset library and save those changes, like apply the changes that you made, and they will be part of an asset library. So you can share that asset library, and whoever you send it to is going to see it in the file in the asset browser. Super nice. The introduction of asset drafts, it's a whole other topic, but it uses this system. Basically, all the changes that you do, they're saved in your drafts locally on your computer, and you can have as many drafts as you want, and you can make them into actual assets or not. They're just there for you to work to tweak them until you actually publish them as an actual asset. But anyway, there is more here in the blog post. Let's see what it's actually new in Blender today. I haven't used that pun in a while. Let's start with texture paint. One little feature actually by a user that I haven't seen before. So it's also a shout out. Unless you have contributed before, but Edward here made this commit that it's a quality of life improvement that syncs adding a new texture slot to the image editor. So whenever you add a new texture slot, you had to manually go to the image editor and select the new image that you just created, the texture slot. Not anymore. Now it's in sync. So the moment you add a new texture paint slot, it will be selected in the image editor, so you can paint right away. Isn't that useful? It is super useful. I'm answering myself. It's handy. It's one of those things that, why wasn't this before? Nobody thought about it. So until Edward. Thank you, Ed. Let's talk about cycles. In cycles, this week we have some pretty exciting news. So first, performance, an improvement in performance. When using adaptive sampling on overexposed scenes. So if you are if you're going for that, photorealistic, overexposed, like super blown out areas, which is an effect that actually is going to make things look more photorealistic, right? When you take a picture, actually Blender guru Andrew Price talked about it in his presentation at the Blender conference this year, about the beginners or secrets for photorealism or something like that, and how in Toy Story 4 they use that to maybe I can Blender conference photorealism, I think, secrets, yeah, that how in the overblown lighting there was something somewhere here. Anyway, somewhere around here. Somewhere, and points to the entire shot. Oh, here, this one. How in when they are inside of the, well, not the Toy Story 1, but the, I think I lost it. Toy Story 4, they are inside of the toy store, the antique store, and when they are walking on the beams, they are like super overexposed, and it looks great. And it's something that you would often try to avoid, but when you actually see it in action, it is super nice. I completely lost it. It's like it was somewhere here. Here, exposure. This case exactly. So this overexposed. It can bring a lot of noise because you are basically shooting a lot of energy, and the rays go all over the place until they fade out, and they don't have any more energy anymore. Thanks for the spoilers. In what? In sorry about spoilers in the presentation. You should have watched it by now. It's like 20 minutes, and it already has 316,000 views. The change that is done in cycles is to improve adaptive sampling on overexposed scenes. So how is this an improvement? Well, it reduces render time. So instead of cycles going all nuts trying to find the energy source for these lights and rays and try to clear all that noise, now I should do it much faster. So in a very extreme case like this little monkey being blown out here, the render time went from 128, almost 129 seconds to 33 seconds. So 1.5 minutes to a half a minute. That's crazy. Wow, amazing. In a more realistic case, like this is a bit too extreme, but in other tests such as the attic, actually the attic is pretty big of a difference, from 8 minutes 40 seconds to 7 minutes 38 seconds. Pretty good. The barber shop interior, that is an interior and that is not blown out. I remember when doing lighting for this, some lighting tests for this shot, I was also trying to be careful not to blow out the interior too much. However, now with this current tech, maybe we could. And that render time went from 4 minutes 14 to 4 minutes 8. Not bad. It's one of those changes that if you add up, it's like, yeah, but it's only like 5 seconds. Yeah, well, when you add those 5 seconds in multiple frames in an animation, if you have to do a 1 second of animation, is already 24 frames. And if you sum that up, you add minutes that you save. Hours. Especially when you count render tests. So that is amazing. It's for free. I don't think we have to enable anything. It's just, well, I mean, for free. It's Mikhail that had to work on it. But it is for free, and so you don't have to tweak anything. Another change. This is a... Okay, let's first talk about the actual... No, let's mention. This one is quick, because I was super excited when I read this title. Cycles add basic support for using open shading language with optics. So this is an NVIDIA only change that should, that's a key word, add support for OSL, open shading language. However, it's not complete, but this is super exciting for NVIDIA graphics cards users, because the main reason many people don't use OSL, as in open shading language scripts, basically GLSL scripts, it's because it's not GPU. It's not supported by a GPU, so you're very limited there. But this changes everything. So you can start writing your own shaders if when this is done, when this is over. So there is even a little test here with a very simple shader here. So pretty nice that this it's coming, it's on its way. So note, this is incomplete and missing an update to the OSL library before being enabled. So keep it in mind. But yeah, so exciting that it's finally happening. And it's optics, unfortunately, because I think HIP is works on top of CUDA. So, but I'm gonna ask the developers if this could at some point be used as an example for other graphics card manufacturers to use as inspiration. Okay, 2 bug fixes, but worth mentioning. First, one is the object info random. This object info random wasn't totally random. Why? Because it was using as random the object name. So using your object name that is unique always, and that was used as a random. However, when instancing these objects, the instance, the parent, it's the object is the same, but the instance is different, and the random coloring, random value of the object info node, it wasn't completely random until now. This has been fixed on Friday, and it should now be completely random because it's no longer using the object name, but the root object name. So the actual parent, the instance name, which is always unique. And that should fix it. However, keep in mind this, and I go full screen to talk serious. There might be, if you have rendered this, if you are using this instance object info in instances and you notice this bug, because this has been fixed, it means that this will work, which means that the instanced objects are going to look different. So if you're in the middle of rendering a movie, a feature film, and you count on those objects random to not be so random because you actually liked it, because there was a leaf or a piece of grass that was just in the camera, just looking just great, well, apply those, make them, add them manually, because random is gonna look different now. Just saying. Okay. Next. This doesn't apply to just regular objects, by the way. It applies to instanced objects. The next change is also a bug fix, but it's worth mentioning because it fixes the render difference between bake and render. So when you render a scene and for some reason the material index is invalid because you know when you select like a solidify modifier has a material index thingy that is really weird, but you can't just select the material, unfortunately. You have to give it an index with a number, which it gives you some flexibility, but it can also lead to broken shaders because sometimes there is no material in the index 15 for some reason, or like any number that you picked. In that case, the render engine, the render cycles would default to the last material. However, the bake code for baking would actually default to the default material, so white, which is not great. Now it is consistent. Just a heads up, because it's well, at least from the looks of it, is a major fix. Also hard to track, right? When you're rendering something and you see it looks one way, but actually you bake it and it looks different and you don't know why, because maybe this modifier was... So very nice. There you go. Render breaking bug fix. I thought you said render baking bug fix, which is also the case. Okay, let's talk about animation. Usability improvement. When you okay, this is one of those commits that should include at the beginning, like it's missing the area where is it? So this will be graph editor, cancel equalize handles and snap keys when no control points are selected. So this is a usability improvement when you don't have any control points selected. For example, from one vertex you have two handles, right? If you only select one handle, you can't normalize that because you don't know where the other is. And that wasn't giving an error. Now it is giving an error apparently based on this change. Let's see, maybe I can see it in big. Yeah, this is what would happen. So if you select flatten when this point is selected, it's good. Now when you only select one handle, it gives you this message, which I think is a bit too aggressive. It shouldn't give you a pop-up. I think it should just tell you in the bottom. I wonder if this video is the latest. Yeah, and also it's negative. It tells you no control points are selected, and it should be a positive message. It should be a select control points to normalize, or to select. It should be like try to help you, not make you feel bad. But yeah, I'll let the animation team know. Next. The next change, it's adding missing entries to the metastrip operators, and in this one is by Jason Schleifer. Hey, also coding. The whole animation module is hands-on. I like that. The change is as follows. It says NLA, update context menu to include meta strip operators. The meta add or remove operators were not included in the context of a ton. Hey, it's just ton just opened the just knock on the door, and he's not coming. That would have been then that would add some views to this. Meta add, meta remove. So these are the two operators that have been added to add and remove from the context menu of NLA. Cool. Next, speaking of operators, it's yeah, I should have brought Ton in to celebrate the 1 million subscribers. But okay, let's celebrate about this other change in markers. So ever found out why some operator in the markers was working or not? Well, the UI should tell you in advance if you can run an operator or not, right? If you can say if you can run it, even it should tell you. The changes of this week add poll messages. What are poll messages? Poll is like a test for an operator if I can run or not. For example, do I have markers selected? Actually, we could probably look at the code. But yeah, the error messages are, for example, when you want to move or perform any operation that transforms a marker, but it's locked. Now it tells you if you don't have any markers selected, the operator should also be like grayed out, and it should give you an error. Markers are locked, no markers are selected. Again, this is a negative message, and I think it should be positive. It should be like select markers to operate, or that. It's always it's a good mental exercise to, when writing those kind of error messages, to try always think the positive for anything, for everything. It's a little thing, but at the end of the day, if the entire UI tells you not to do things, you can feel it. You go to bed a bit sadder. Speaking of user interface, my favorite change of this week comes from the one and only Leon. Look at this beautiful interface that we used to have in the modifiers, when you are using geometry nodes modifiers. And actually, I don't know if anybody was annoyed by this, but the alignment of the inputs of the group inputs in the geometry nodes modifiers were all misaligned. There were some of them were like going all the way till like the end. Some had decorators, some didn't have decorators. Some were like protruding in and out, but not anymore. Look at that. Peace of mind. Before, after, before, after. I mean, we could still align these buttons, but because of this, it's okay. We can let that one go because this attribute toggle, it's a different monster that needs to, but still, isn't that amazing? One line. Thank you, Leon, for working on this. And also the spacing between the items is now less, because the object picker, data block picker, used to take extra space than the other items. So now we can actually fit more things. Cool. Super nice. Another great quality of life improvement by Colin in the user interface. This is a tiny change, but helps you. It helps you read, for example, when you can and cannot do things. Before, when you were in the minimum or in the maximum zoom level, the button will still be active, like you could still click on the button. Not anymore. Now when you reach the maximum, the button will be grayed out, so it tells you that you are in the max level, and the same when you are in the minimum level, so you go all the way in and out. Such a small thing, but now it actually tells you in advance. Yay for these kind of things, to see at a glance when you can do things or not. So thank you so much, Colin, for working on it. The next change, it's also, well, quality of life, but it's a change that puts the movie clip editor in line with other 2D editors or 3D editors too, that have the gizmo navigation toggles. So actually, does it actually work? Let's see. So new VFX, and let's toggle in and out. There you go. Now we can. It's not navigation. It's navigation. Ah, no, it's navigate. Navigate gizmos. Ah, navigate. Yeah. Now you can actually toggle them on and off. I think the node editor is the only one still missing the node editor is missing the actual arrows, and then the toggle to disable those arrows. So maybe Ednier Fergo, if you're watching this, maybe you're inspired to do it. The node editor needs your help, especially people working with laptops with trackpad. I've seen people using trackpads and using they really use a lot these buttons over here. So it would be nice. The next change, it's marked as a fix, but well, it is a fix. So one tool, a very important tool, was missing from the menu panel, from the the menu, the mesh menu. So the knife tool was nowhere to be seen. I think this is the patch, but the actual commit had an image, I think. Yeah, it's like the knife tool. Where is it? And also, menus are important because they give discoverability to a tool, but also they show the shortcut for them. So they are important. It is important that everything, any action, any operator is somewhere in at least one menu. And the context menu too. Context is a separate menu, but at least in one menu. Well, ideally in only one top level menu plus context menu. Contexts are a separate thing. It's like a collection of the best. But it's welcome. That is pretty welcome. And this change this coming change, it's almost my favorite. If we didn't have this alignment in the geometry nodes, this will be my favorite commit this week. Such a small change, but it was driving me nuts. Have you noticed how in 3. I don't know, at some point in Blender 2.8, 3.0, this happened? The sliders for RGBA, they were like, when value was 1, it didn't say 1.0, it says 1. And that is inconsistent because when you have any other value, you have the decimals, right? You have like 4 decimals. And it used to be like that, actually. If we open this beautiful software I downloaded the other day, actually here you do have you had the 1.0. So at some point we had it, but it was changed, and it was RGB and the 2 dots. This is now in 3.4. We have I don't know if 3.4 is it 3, maybe. I'm curious. 3.4, yes, nice. Okay, so this change is now looking like this. So the full name, red, green, blue, and the 3 decimals. Instead of HSVA, it says hue saturation value. And the same for lightness. So yay for that. If there is room for it, use the label. The spacing was also weird. Like there was way less spacing before. Why would that change? That's strange. Even this spacing. Or maybe it's the size of the UI that is different. Anyway, this is now back. Look at this beauty. Look at this beautiful. Okay, next change. This was by Alan Roberts, by the way, Mystery Pancake. Thank you for that. Thank you for this. It's been around since March. I never seen it. I would have given a little like bump, reminder bump. Grease Pencil, the outline modifier, is a new modifier in Grease Pencil that has been introduced for 3.4. For Blender 3.4, it's coming out soon. The modifier doesn't work unless you have an active camera, but that wasn't anywhere. Well, you could see it. If you don't have any camera, you would see that didn't work. But now the UI would actually tell you, have a little message, if you don't have an active camera, that you need to have one. So yay for usability improvements. More usability improvements. The Noto, the font, Blender font for Chinese, Japanese, and Korean has been improved in a way that now it the symbols looked very similar, but they were not exactly, didn't mean exactly the same, and that is a mistake that it's easy to make because if you don't speak the language. So sorry about that, but thanks to community involvement and giving feedback, this has been fixed. So it should now work as it is. Should work properly. And together with another little fix that for the font sample, the Korean font sample, it was using a reference for North Korean, and Blender uses South Korean as a sample, as a default. So now the text has been changed thanks to feedback from the community, from Sun Kim, so person. So Sun, thank you about this. Also, just worth mentioning that actually this was mentioned on a commit, so the commit was already there, and in the commit he came up with this. It's like, hey, since Blender, like many other software, uses South Korean for Korean localization instead of North Korean, the name should be this. So the same, if you are a non-English speaker and you speak a language that Blender supports but not totally great, don't feel afraid to come to the chat or here on developer.blender.org and always leave a message, because this kind of you understand that this can happen when you don't speak the language as a native. We even have sometimes English typos or issues, and we have a bunch of native English speakers around. But anyway, I'm amazed how Harley can deal with this stuff even as a native English native speaker. You can tell I'm not, because I always mix the order. All right, the last change in the user interface has to do with sculpting, and it's a small rename that is mainly just to let you know that if you don't find an operator, it's because the operator for box show bounding box and hide bounding box are now shortened into box show and box hide, which is it follows conventions in other areas of Blender. Just to let you know that if you're looking for show and hide, now look for box before. And this will probably change also the order in which the keys appear. Like you know, you can press B for box, so this will change. Yeah, probably will change. And speaking of sculpting, there is actually one change in Sculpt this week. It has to do with the Symmetrize tool. The merge threshold is now much lower based on community feedback, and also it is, well, not much lower, it's half of what it used to be. So it used to be 0.001, now it's half of that, and the value is now exposed in the workspace panel. Why workspace? Or maybe it means the last operator, the define last operator. Window manager, Sculpt Symmetrize. Oh yeah, it's in the, not in the workspace, but in the same place where you find the Symmetrize direction and Symmetrize operator settings. Okay. We're almost, actually no, so a bunch of things. I didn't think we were gonna have that many. Oh, Grease Pencil changes. In Grease Pencil this week, the auto masking tools are now global, not per brush. So it is similar to how it's done in sculpting, although sculpting has both per brush and global, and Grease Pencil has moved to global. I wonder if they left. No, they didn't leave the per brush. But yeah, the change affects this tool, but also makes it so auto masking now works with an AND logic, not as OR. Before it was either one or the other, which means, but now it is an AND. So if you have, like in sculpting, if you have cavity and mesh boundary and only in that case it will make the change. And it used to be OR, which is not ideal if it's one or the other, because then might as well just have everything turned on. It's more predictable this way. Okay, let's talk about performance. There is some performance improvements, one small and one not so small, actually quite large. Color management. So the commit goes as follows: parallelize image buffer conversion to float. What does it mean? Well, there was a bug report about how Eevee crashes or glitches with the Filmic sRGB color space. So while investigating this bug report, now apparently it was taking too much time to calculate stuff, to calculate the color management, to apply color management on top of your render. And that a process in there has been made parallelized, so multi-thread, which makes it go from 14 seconds to 6 seconds. It's pretty huge. And apparently there is room for even more improvement if this was moved to C++, which is happening all over Blender, so I wouldn't be surprised if this happens soon. Awesome. Super neat. The smaller change or improvement in performance has to do with mesh, as in when calculating the normals when building the VVH tree, the boundary volume hierarchy thing, bounds, that thing that makes rendering faster in cycles by calculating volumes and helping ray tracing. But it's also used in other areas of Blender. When calculating this, apparently there is a step that it was being done for calculating the normals and of vertex normals, and it wasn't necessary, so this should save some time in there, some percents, and maybe memory too, I guess, if you don't have to store that. But it's not mentioned here. This is just me speculating on something I don't know. So take it with a grain of salt. The next topic is UV. Okay. UV is fun. The word UV is just the coordinates, right? It doesn't stand for, it's just coordinates. It's funny that we call something, it's like calling something XYZ. Okay, UV editing has a new copy and paste function, but an actual really good copy and paste because it's topology based to copy paste. So the usage notes: open the UV editor, use the selection tools to select a quad, join to a triangle, join to another quad. It's very specific, but okay. From the menu, choose UV copy. The UV coordinates for your quad 3 quad are now stored internally, like in a clipboard. Then you can use the selection tools to select another similar selection, like quad, triangle, quad, and then you can split the selection, optional, but then you can paste it from the same menu. Choose UV paste. The UV coordinates for the new selection will be moved to match the store UV. So as long as the selection matches, so topology, now it's copy paste. Welcome to the 21st century. However, it's copy paste and a real copy paste. Actually, we can look at the UV island copy paste is how this mockup by Daniel Beister from 2020 was described. Why is better with copy paste? Because it's clear how to define the source UV coordinate. The code can store multiple sources UV island coordinates, therefore it is fewer clicks for the user. So nice. Yeah, when you want to match one piece of geometry with the other, you would use it. So you select one eye of Suzanne and then you match the other one. Copy and paste. Amazing. So cool. And this is 3.5 though. This is not 3.4. Some of the things that I talked about today, mainly the fixes, are 3.4, which is nice to see. So thank you, Chris, for working on the UV. Actually, I'm working on the release notes for 3.4, and UV is one of the biggest topics together with SCULPT. Next, so rigging. This has to do with Rigify, so it's technically in the add-ons section, but Rigify should be on by default. I think it's such a essential part of rigging. Why would you? Yeah, well, yeah, there are multiple reasons why you wouldn't, but if you're not making characters, for example, but still should be. Rigify. Port the ability to generate action constraints from CloudRig. CloudRig, if you don't know, is the rigging system that is used that was developed based on extending Rigify. It's developed here in-house at the Blender Studio, and it was used for the rig. Actually, if you look for in the Blender Studio, you can find the CloudRig stuff. So if you have CloudRig, physics change, highlighting, widget drawing, there is a whole tutorial about cyclic chain, selection sets, rig samples, documentation. Awesome. So this is for an older version, but it still applies. I don't think this has changed that much. Also, you can get the character, but it's super nice that there is a whole documentation section for the rig, and the things that were developed, the one part of the things, the action constraint, generation from Cloud Rig is now part of Rigify. So, hey, when you ask, if I join the studio, if I get a Blender Cloud subscription or Blender Studio subscription, am I helping Blender? This answers it. Of course it does, because everybody here is using Blender 24/7 to improve Blender and test it. So in one way or another, you are helping Blender. But this makes it even more explicit. So that is super nice. And there's been a whole rewrite going on under the hood. I don't think it has user-facing changes, but if you look at annotate and fix warnings in basic rig components, but like a bunch of files have been changed. So it's good to see that Rigify is getting some action. Some action constraints. Haha. All right, next potpourri section. Let's talk about potpourri. The potpourri section / add-ons. There's one operator that allows you to convert color attributes. Yay! So remember this new panel for color attributes that was introduced a few versions ago? Well, now you can find in the color attributes panel you can convert, for example, from vertex, the domain from vertex to between vertex or face corner and between byte color or color. Awesome. Convert operator by Ramil Rosilet. Thank you, Ramil. Another change for the TVs out there. If you're working in a studio, this is very niche. If you're working in a studio or at home, you use Linux and you need to build you need to build Blender with an older version of FFmpeg because the distro that you're using doesn't support it. Well, Blender now supports building with FFmpeg older than 5.0. The current Blender ships comes with FFmpeg 5.1, but now you can compile it using an older version of FFmpeg because not all distros have changed to it yet. Especially the LTS ones, I think. Okay. Next. And the last one. Actually, this has there's no user-facing changes, but it's very exciting to see that the asset system is getting the entire system is getting a complete rewrite, starting from the asset itself. Right now, the asset, it's a bit of a hack, as how it was introduced in 3.0, to use the file browser but hide files but have assets. Was a bit of a hack, and the whole system has been rewritten to make it like an actual defined asset, like first class citizen. But also coming up is a new browser, the asset browser, that it's not the file browser, so it will allow for much more customization without having to add a whole bunch of if asset browser, a null file browser, and so on and so forth. So yeah, nothing to see for Blender for regular users, but it is exciting to see that there is a work being done there. And that is all. I think the add-on, the Pie menu add-on now also has asset browser and geometry nodes, which wasn't added. It should be geometry nodes. It says geometry node. It's geometry nodes. It's not a geometry editor. It's a geometry nodes. Okay. Oof, that is everything and more. Let's see if there is any questions in Blender.Today. Otherwise, we're gonna be wrapping up. How much time do I have? 5-10 minutes ish. Okay, let's do. There is 15 questions, and Finn, thanks for making this thread. I'm gonna see the most voted ones, and I'm gonna go down until there's no more votes. Hey Pablo, says Finn, I hope you have a great day. I also hope you too. Finally, a Blender add-on platform is coming. Yes, the extension platform that was announced at the Blender conference, and it's you can read about in the code blog. And I really like that, says Finn. there will be some guidelines requirements for an add-on to be featured. But will there also be guidelines for UI design? There are many awesome Blender add-ons out there that have a horrible UI design. I think at least some basic requirements should be implemented there in order to also improve add-on UI design to be closer to Blender's great UI. We can have guidelines, but if an add-on is currently ugly, it's because the user wanted to make it ugly. I mean, what better guideline than the rest of Blender, right? To use. If you like, I think that we are very consistent. Maybe there is a few areas here and there that are not. I think I can think of like the bake panel is a bit weird. Yes, yeah, or even I think in Eevee the lighting, indirect light. This is a bit of a mess with operators here. This is a bit of a mess, but I think in many places we are pretty consistent. So if add-ons look ugly, it's because they want to make it ugly, and it's probably the add-on authors are fine with having a button that is 4 rows high and it's, yeah, all caps, you know. If those people want to design it that way, I think it's up to the users to use that add-on or not, or give feedback. But we can provide guidelines for sure. But we have some sort of human interface guidelines that are being worked on. They are nowhere finished at all. Actually, if you look at them, you're gonna see a lot of work in progress text to do and stuff. But we want to make it nicer. We want to, for example, menus. The menus should all be grouped by sections, and the icons should only be in the topmost item of the same category, not on every item, right? Not everywhere. Yeah, best practices, dialogues, how to write a dialogue, how to write, writing style, for example, capitalize titles, don't use American English, keep text short and to the point, do not use V groups, verts, loc, rot, FAC, which Blender still does in some areas. There are reasons. But yeah, there is some guidelines already, but the best guideline is Blender itself. We plan to improve this. Next. I hope you have a great day. Thank you, Xdragon. Here are my questions. Can you tell me why you can't use texture with a multi-res modifier in sculpt mode? Bug report. Well, if there is a bug report, I think developers will know the answer much better than I can reply. I can try, but texture not display in sculpt mode due to missing UVs. So this is from 2019. So this is before Cycles X. And what is the status of the latest change? Any updates? To my knowledge, there is some development towards it, but there are no real visible fix yet, unfortunately. And that is a reply from Sergey, which is a developer that has worked on Cycles X and is a core developer of Blender. So if he doesn't know, I'm sorry. There must be other reasons. Maybe there is patch halfway baked, or they're expecting changes in the area. But you can always, like, if more than a few months have passed, you can always ask again. I don't think anybody will get mad because of that. But yeah, if it worked in 2.7.9, but it's a Cycles change, it's tough because Cycles is completely different from 2.7, right? Like from Cycles X to denoisers to, yeah. Next question by Reanimate. Hi Pablo, so speaking about cycles, is there a plan to add out of core mode to cycles? Some kind of low memory usage mode, or reserve memory mode? Maybe even memory limit. Basically a way to make cycles use less memory when rendering, with a trade-off the rendering speed will be reduce both for CPU and GPU. You can, there are ways to do this, to fix this, as in you can, I don't know if there will be a mode like that, but I know, for example, in performance, you can use compact VVH, which uses less RAM, but renders slower, for example. So you can use that. There is the special VVH, the persistent data. If you don't have that enabled, use less memory. There are a few settings, but I don't know of any specific improvement like even with that name. I'm sorry. Next. Maybe we should go to bottom. Actually, this is at last. Actually, there is 15 comments, but many of them have answers. So let's reply all of them, the top level ones, because there is exactly a few, which is the time that I have left. Hola Pablo, says Max Edge. Now that Physics 5.1 is open source, will it find its way into Blender? Well, what license is that? And also Physics, there was a 4.0 version that was free, but I don't think it's just a plug and play solution in Blender. Unfortunately, it would be pretty great if you can just plug and play a whole system. But you have to, well, I haven't read this, but if the license allows it, and this is cross-platform, remember, Blender aims to have the same functionality in all hardware and all operating systems. We are deviating a bit. There are areas of that you can't help, right? Like if an NVIDIA graphics card has some functionality like optics, then the optics denoiser can be used. But there is also the CPU version of it, so it's not like you're not losing much. There is the open image denoise by Intel, and they say they want to bring it also to GPU at some point. So there is like an alternative. And having a whole physics system only working in some system, I don't know, maybe it works already in other graphics cards, but if it's only NVIDIA and you can only do physics if you had the specific graphics card, I don't know if it's very, very fair. One thing that I'm a bit sad about is that the compositor, for example, the real-time compositor, is not going to be supported. It's not supported at the moment in macOS. Because of OpenGL stuff. They're working on improving that and make it work with Metal, so it's gonna be super fast using Apple's tech, but for the time being it doesn't work, and that's not nice because it means, it's only the real-time compositor. You have as a backup the CPU compositor, so again, we are not losing functionality, you're just losing the speed from one operating system because it works on Linux and on Windows, just not on macOS yet. But yeah, there should always be an alternative. You can't just give an entire physics system to only some people. It's not nice. Okay, next. Barf Garbage says, what's the haps paths? I want to be greeted like that from now on. What's the haps paths? I love that. Never heard it. I recently watched a video by Sirwed Neistat. He's an animator, right? He made an animation of Maya user used Blender for the first time, I think, some long time ago. When is this from? 3 months ago. I don't think I have seen this. Where he changed the colors of translate, rotate, and scale in Maya's graph editor. That seems like a super duper simple way of distinguishing between different curves, but I haven't found a way to do the same in Blender. Would be good with separating the colors of axis and mode of translation, maybe globally across all Blenders. You can change, well, I don't know if it applies to the graph editor, and we're gonna find out together, but you can actually change the colors for axis in Blender. So if the x-axis was suddenly cyan. And this Z was pink. Well, I'm actually choosing, okay, this one. I wonder if it applies to the graph editor, and if it doesn't, it should. Let's see, Shift F6. Let's add some shortcuts. Hey, it does. It does. Ta-da! X, Y, Z. So you can, in a global way. But why nobody replied that yet? Anyway, that is your answer, I believe. I hope I did answer your question. And, okay, 2 more questions to go. Hi, Pablo. Hope you're doing well. Well, does the fact that NVIDIA have open source physics, okay, related to physics, will help integration, even if it's only CPU? It's already Seb Studio started making an add-on for information. Nice. No, I don't know. Yeah, no, I already replied, actually. And the last question by Steve is, hi, Pablo. I hope you're well. Thank you. I hope you too. I've been using Blender for almost 4 years and contributing to the Blender fund and the cloud the whole time, as I can see here. You're a cloud subscriber, a bronze development supporter, and you helped Sprite. There is one thing I've been hoping that comes to Blender, and that is occlusion selection. Right now, the workflow for selecting back-facing components forces you to switch to wireframe or X-ray, and that is really awful bottleneck in workflow. I've been using a few add-ons that allow you to use the lasso selection and toggle into a temporary X-ray mode to see the back-facing elements and make your selection. Once you let go of the mouse, X-ray is automatically turned off. That sounds like a pretty nice solution. The problem is these scripts add-on break with new releases of Blender, like regular add-ons, and it takes someone offering a band-aid to get it working again. This has been ignored or brushed off by a few different Blender developers, and I'm really hoping at some point the Blender sees the problem with the current way of selecting, really hoping for a native solution, maybe even an option in preferences that gives people the ability to select occluded elements without switching to, well, you don't have to switch, right? You can select with Alt, with, what is it, Control click, Control Shift, Alt click, this menu. And now this actually is sorted by distance from the mouse. So if I have a Suzanne here in front of everyone, this should show up first. Yeah, Suzanne is first. And then if I show it here in the back, then Alt click, so Suzanne is all the way in the back. So there is a way, if Alt click, I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but yeah, the temporary X-ray mode, I mean, not only for selection, but just for seeing things underneath, it sounds like a neat option. But if you have any links on how it works, would be nice. But maybe if you're not aware of Alt click, then this might help. And I'm running out of voice, I'm running out of water, I'm running out of time because it's over 1 hour, and I have to run home to the Spanish version of Blender.Today. Very originally named Blender Hoy. Oh no, this is not professional. How can you leave a bottle on by the camera? There you go. Okay, cool. How was it? Was it anything this week that excited you? That you found something that it changed your life, like blown out highlights in cycles, or the UI changes that were so annoying, or the cloud rig changes for your rigging, for your Rigify system? Or are you looking forward for the Blender new asset system with brushes and asset drafts? I know I am. You know what else I am excited for? For next week, because it's going to be the last episode of Blender.Today this year. Unless someone comes up with something in the meantime. I think there are other YouTube channels also following what's new. Otherwise, we're gonna see each other. Oh wait, let's not even say next week. Next week I bring all the details. Other than that, it's been super nice. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you have a great week. Yeah, you deserve a great week. Look at all the good things you have to play with this week. So enjoyed. Watch your ear holes for the sound that is about to come in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Oh, that was... Actually, I didn't do it on time, sorry. Okay, thanks everyone. Thank you. Have a great week. See you next week, same place, same time for another Blender Today live.